Hey everyone, welcome back. So, as a data people, it means if you are working with the data domain like data engineer, database administrator, data analyst, data scientist, or that may be if you are working as a software developer, then you know the importance of SQL, right? Because wherever you will go for the interview, they will definitely ask much more questions from SQL side, correct? So today in this video, I am going to tell you the top 100 mostly asked SQL interview questions that you will definitely face during your interview process. Okay? As I told, it's top 100, right? But if I will cover all top 100 questions along with answers, then the video will be much more longer and it will be nearly about more than 1 hour, right? That's why I have divided these 100 questions into two parts, and this is the first part where we are going to cover the top 50 questions along with answers, which will definitely help you to crack the SQL interview. Alright? So let's see what are those top 50 questions one by one. So the first question is, what is SQL? So as we all know, SQL stands for Structured Query Language. Okay? Or we can say SQL is a programming language which is basically used for managing a relational database. Yes, SQL is basically used to managing the relational database. Okay? And by the help of SQL, we can store, manipulate, and retrieve data from different databases. Alright? This is called as the SQL. So SQL is a structured query language which is basically used to store, manipulate and retrieve data from different databases. Then the next question is, what are the different types of SQL statements? So basically we have three different types of SQL statements are there, and those are, first is DDL, that is data definitions language. Okay, data definitions language is basically used for creating, altering and dropping databases objects. Alright. Then the next is data manipulation language, or we can say DML, that is data manipulations language. So data manipulations language is used for querying, inserting, updating and deleting data from the database or from the table. Okay. Then the third one is DCL. DCL stands for data control language. So from this keyword, you can understand DCL statement is basically used to control database, right? Or we can say DCL is basically used for controlling access to the database, granting or revoking privileges. All right. So these are the three different SQL statements that we have in SQL. Okay. Then the third question is, what is primary key? A primary key is a column or a set of column that is uniquely identifies each record in a table. It ensures data integrity and allow efficient retrieval of data. Okay, this is called as the primary key. So remember, primary key is basically used to identify each record uniquely. Alright, this is the main use of primary key. Then the next is, what is foreign key? A foreign key is a column or a set of columns in a table that refers to the primary key of another table. It establishes a relationship between the two tables. So the main concept of primary key and foreign key is to create the relationship between tables. Okay. Then the next question is, what is composite key? A composite key is a primary key. We can say a composite key as a primary key composed of two or more columns. Together, these columns uniquely identify each record in a table. So it means if we have a table and in that table we have a column and that column doesn't contain any unique value. So at that case, what we can do, we can combine two different columns together and we can create a primary key column, and that is called as the composite key. Okay. Then the next question is, what is the difference between delete and truncate in SQL? So the main difference between the delete and truncate is, delete is a DML statement which is basically used to remove specific rows from a table, whereas truncate is a DDL statement that is basically used to remove all the row from a table effectively by resetting the table. Okay, so delete is basically used to remove a specific row from a table, whereas by the help of truncate you can delete entire row from a particular table. Okay, then the next question is, what is subquery? So a subquery is a query which is nested within another query. It can be used to retrieve data from one table based on values from another table. It means whenever we are using a query inside a query, that is called as the subquery. Okay? And the main purpose of using the subquery is to retrieve the data from one table based on the value from another table. Okay? This is the main purpose of the subquery. Alright, then the next question is, what is the difference between a subquery and a join? In SQL, a subquery is a query which is nested within another query. It means whenever we are writing a query inside the another query, that is called as the nested query. Okay, whereas join is basically used to combine row from two or more tables based on the related columns. Okay. This is the main difference between the subquery and the join. Then the next question is, what is self-join? This is one of the most important questions that you will definitely get during your interview process. So, a self-join is a join operations where a table is joined within itself. It means we are using the self-join whenever we want to compare the row within the same table. In that scenario, we use the self-join. Okay. Then the next most important question is, what are the different types of join operation in SQL? So the answer is, in SQL we have 4 different types of joins are there. Okay, first is inner join, then left join, right join, and full join. In case of inner join, it returns only the matching row from the both the table. Okay, but in case of left join, it returns all the row from the left table and matching row from the right table. Okay, in case of right join, it returns all the row from the right table and matches row from the left table only. Okay, whereas in case of full join, it returns all the row from both the tables. Okay, these are the main difference between inner join, left join, right join, and full join. All right. Then the next question is, what is normalization in SQL? This is also one of the most important interview questions that you can face during your interview process. Alright, so the answer is, normalizations is the process of organizing data in a database to eliminate the redundancy, and dependency issue. Okay, and it involves splitting tables into the smaller one. So in short, you can say normalizations is a process by the help of which we can eliminate the redundancy and dependency issue. And apart from that, by the help of this normalizations concept, we can split our bigger table into the smaller one. Okay, this is the main reason why we are using normalization in SQL. Okay, then the next question is, what are the different normal forms in database normalizations? So basically, we have 5 different types of normalizations form that we have in SQL. Okay, so the first is 1NF, or we can say fast normal form. So fast normal form is used to eliminate the duplicate row and ensure automacy of values. Okay, so in case of fast normal form, what we are doing, we are removing the duplicate row. Okay. Then next is second normal form, or we can say 2NF. So 2NF is basically used to ensure that each non-key columns depends on the entry of primary key. Okay, this is the second NF. The next is third normal form, or we can say 3NF. Okay, so 3NF is basically used to ensure that each non-key columns depend only on the primary key and not on other non-key columns. This is the main purpose of creating 3NF. Okay, next is 4NF, or we can say fourth normal form. So fourth normal form is used to eliminate the multi-values dependency. Alright, The next is fifth normal form. Fifth normal form is used to eliminate join dependency. So these are the 5 different normal forms that we have in SQL. Alright. Then the next question is, what is an index? An index is a database structure that is used to improve the speed of data retrieval operations on database tables. Okay. So suppose we have a big table, and out of that we have to extract something by writing a small query. At that time, if we will use the index on that particular table, then the process of finding that particular value will be faster. Okay. Because directly the search process will go with the index value. Alright. It allows faster searching, sorting and filtering of the data. Alright. So the index column is more important whenever we are creating a particular table. Then the next is, what is the clustered index? A clustered index determines the physical order of the data in a table. Each table can have only one cluster index, and it is generally created on the primary key columns. This is called as the clustered index. Then the next is, what is non-clustered index? A non-clustered index is a separate structure from the table that contains the sorted list of a selected column. It ensures the performance of searching and filtering organizations' data. Okay? Then the next question is, what is the difference between primary key and foreign key? Okay? This is also one of the most important questions. So the answer is, a primary key is a column or a set of columns that uniquely identify each record in a table. Okay? And remember, it cannot contain the null value. It cannot contain the null value. Okay? Whereas in case of unique key, it allows null value and it enforces uniqueness, but does not automatically define the primary identifier of a table. This is the main difference between the primary key and foreign key. Okay? Next is, what is ACID in database transactions? So ACID stand for atomicity. Okay? Then consistency, isolations and durability. Or we can say it is a set of properties that ensure reliability and integrity in a database transactions. Alright, this is called ACID property in SQL. Then the next question is, what is the difference between union and union all? A union combines the result sets of 2 or more selected statements and it removes the duplicate value from that. Okay? Whereas in case of union all, it combines the result sets without removing the duplicate value. Okay, this is the difference between union and union all. Next question is, what is view in SQL? So a view is a virtual table driven from one or more table. Okay, so a view is also a kind of table, but it's not a table. It's a virtual table that driven from one or more tables. Okay. It does not store data, but it provides a way to present the data. It means physically the view doesn't contain the data, but it represents the data in a customized or a simple manner. Okay. Then the next question is, what is store procedure? Okay. So the answer is, a store procedure is a pre-compiled set of SQL. It is a pre-compiled set of SQL statement. Okay. That performs specific tasks. It can be called and executed multiple times. Okay, a procedure can be called and executed multiple times with different parameters. That's why we can say a store procedure is a pre-compiled set of SQL statement which can be called and executed multiple times with different parameters. Okay. Then the next question is, what is trigger in SQL? Okay. This is also one of the most important questions that you can face during your interview process. The answer is, a trigger is a set of SQL statement. A trigger is a set of SQL statement that automatically executed in response to a specific event such as insert, update, delete operations on a table. Okay, it means a trigger is nothing but a set of SQL statement that will automatically executed whenever a event like insert, update, delete operations is performed on a particular table in a database. Okay, that is called as the trigger. Then the next question is, what is transaction? A transaction is a logical unit of work that consist of one or more database operations. It ensures that all operations within the transactions are treated as the single unit. Okay, either all succeeding or all falling. This is called as the transaction in SQL. Alright, then the next is, what is deadlock? A deadlock is a situations. Deadlock is nothing but a situations where two or more transactions are unable to process, because each is waiting for the resource held by another transactions. This can result in a perpetual wait state. So in these situations where each transaction is waiting for a particular resource which has been held by another transactions, we can call it as the deadlock. Alright. Next is, what is the difference between the char and varchar data types? So a char is a fixed length character data type that store a specific number of characters, whereas in case of varchar, it is a variable length of character data type, and it is used to store a varying number of characters. In case of char, it contains a fixed length number of characters, but in case of varchar, it contains variable number of characters. Alright. Then the next question is, what is the difference between the functions and store procedure in SQL? Alright. So the answer is, a functions return a value and it can be used in SQL statement, whereas a store procedure does not return a value. Okay. Store procedure does not return a value directly, but it can perform various actions. Alright. So this is the difference between the functions and store procedure in SQL. Then the next question is, what is the difference between group by and having clause? This is also one of the most important questions that you may face during your interview. Okay. So remember, group by is used to group rows based on one or more columns, whereas in case of having clause, it is used to filter grouped rows based on specific conditions. Alright, this is the main difference between group by and having. Then the next question is, what is the difference between the database and schema? So a database is a collection of related data that is stored and organized, whereas a schema is a logical container within a database that holds objects like tables, views, and procedures. Alright, this is the main difference between database and schema. Okay. The next question is, what is data warehouse? So a data warehouse is a large repository of data collected from various sources, structured and organized to support business intelligence and reporting. Alright, this is called as the data warehousing. Then the next question is, what is the difference between OLAP and OLTP? So OLAP means online transaction processing. So OLAP is basically used for day-to-day transactions operations and focus on real-time processing, whereas in case of OLAP, it means online analytics processing is used for complex analytical queries. And the main focus of the OLAP is it focus on historical data analysis. This is the difference between OLTP and OLAP. Then the next question is, what is correlated subquery? So a correlated subquery is a query that reference columns from outer query. It is executed for each row of the outer query, making it dependent on the outer query result. This is called as the correlated subquery. Okay. Then the next question is, what is the difference between temporary table and table variable in SQL? Okay. So a temporary table is a physical table that is created and used temporarily within a session or a specific scope, whereas a table variable is a variable with a structure similar to the table and it exists only within the scope of user-defined functions, or we can say a stored procedure. Okay, this is the main difference between the temporary table and table variable. Alright. Next question is, what is the difference between union and join? So union combines row from two or more tables vertically. Okay, if you want to combine two or more tables vertically, then you can use the union, whereas join combines column from two or more tables horizontally. Okay, this is vertically and this is horizontally. Okay, based on the related column. This is the main difference between the union and join. Okay, next is what is the difference between where and having clause. This is also a important question. Where is basically used to filter rows before grouping in a query, whereas having is used to filter grouped row after grouping. Okay, it means where clause is basically used to filter rows before grouping in a query, whereas having clause is used to filter group rows after grouping. Okay, after grouping. This is the difference between the where clause and having clause. Then the next question is, what is the difference between the database and data warehouse? A database is a collection of related data organized for transactional purpose, whereas a data warehouse is a large repository of data organized for analytical purpose. Right? So the data that we store inside the data warehousing, that is basically used for analytical purpose, whereas the data we can store inside the database, that is used for transactional purpose only. Okay. Then the next question is, what is the difference between the primary key and candidate key? So a candidate key is a column or a set of columns that can uniquely identify each record in a table, whereas a primary key is a chosen candidate key that becomes the main identifier of the table. Okay, this is the main difference between the primary key and foreign. Then the next question is, what is the difference between the schema and database? Okay, so a database is a collection of related data, whereas a schema is a logical container within a database that holds objects like table, view, and procedures. Alright, this is the difference between schema and database. Next is, what is self-join? Okay, a self-join is a join operations where a table is joined within itself. It is basically used when you want to compare row within the same table. Alright, when you want to compare the row within the same table, at that time we use this self-join concept. Okay. Next is, what is a recursive SQL query? A recursive SQL query is a query that refers to one output in order to perform the additional operations. Okay. It is commonly used for hierarchical and tree-like data structure. Okay. This is called as the recursive SQL query. Next is, what is the difference between correlated subquery and nested subquery? A correlated subquery is a subquery that references columns from the outer query, whereas a nested query is a subquery that is independent of the outer query. Okay, this is the difference between correlated query and nested query. Next question is, what is the difference between the natural join and EQ join? Okay, this is also one of the most important questions. A natural join is a join operations that automatically matches columns while the same name from both the tables. Okay, whereas an EQ join is a join operations that explicitly specify the join conditions using equality operations. Alright, this is the main difference between the natural join and EQ join. Then the next question is, what is the difference between outer join and inner join, right? An inner join returns only the matching row from both the tables, whereas an outer join returns all the row from one table and matching row from the another tables. This is the main difference between the outer join and inner join. Correct? Next question is, what is the difference between the left join and right join? In case of left join, it returns all the row from the left table and matching row from the right table. Whereas in case of right join, it returns all the row from the right table and matching row from the left table. Okay, this is the main difference between the left join and right join. Correct? Next is, what is full outer join? So A full outer join returns all the rows from both the tables, including unmatched row, and combine them based on the join conditions. Okay, this is called as the full outer join. Next question is, what is self-referencing foreign key? This is also one of the most important questions. So the answer is a self-referencing foreign key is a foreign key that references the primary key of the same table. It is basically used to establish the hierarchical relationship within the single table. This is the main purpose of creating the self-referencing foreign key in a table. Alright? Next question is, what is the main purpose of the group by clause? So, the group by clause is used to group the row based on one or more columns. It is typically used with the aggregate functions to perform calculations on each group. Alright, this is the main purpose of creating the group by clause in SQL. Then the next question is, what is the main purpose of the having clause in SQL? So, the having clause is basically used to filter group rows based on a specific conditions. It operates on the result set of the group by clause. That's why we can say we can use the having clause after the group by only. Alright? Next question is, what is the main purpose of order by clause? The order by clause is used to sort the result set based on one or more columns in ascending or descending order. So suppose if you want to give the order to a particular result set, at that time we can use the order by clause on that. Okay? To make the values in the ascending or descending order. Correct? Next question is, what is the purpose of the distinct key? The distinct keyword is basically used to retrieve unique value from a column in a result set by eliminating the duplicate rows. Alright? This is the main purpose of creating distinct keyword. Next question is, what is the main purpose of like operator? The like operator is basically used in a where clause to search for a specific pattern in a column. It allows wildcard character like percentage, okay, so to match any sequence of a character, okay, and we can use the underscore to match the single character. Got it? In this way we can use the like operator in SQL. Next question is, what is the purpose of in operator? So the answer is, the in operator is basically used in where clause to check whether a value is matching in the values of the list or in the subquery. Okay, this is the main purpose of using in operator in SQL. So these are the top 50 SQL interview questions that you should definitely know before going to the interview. Okay, so as I already told from beginning of this video, in this part 1 video we will cover only 50 questions and the rest 50 more important questions that you will see in the next upcoming video. Okay, so see you in the next video. Tab tak ke liye take care. Bye bye.